We're going to interview John Burtch today. You can see the title and the date up there. It's September 30th, 1983.
That sounds real good. And
so tell us, you got a peanut gallery there, don't you?
Yeah, we've got a peanut gallery. We're going to may have to chase the peanut gallery home.
Yeah. Tell us about yourself, John. Where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in Iola, Kansas, May the 3rd, 1917. I was a small child weighing about 10 pounds.
10 pounds? That's not very small.
That's not very small.
How long did you live in Iola?
We lived in Iola, Kansas until I was 4. My father changed jobs and he worked for the Lehigh Cement Company, and he got a job with the Ash Grove Cement Company, so we moved to Chanute.
Chanute, Kansas.
Chanute, Kansas. That is down in the southeast corner of Kansas.
You mentioned your father. What was his name?
My father's name was Burtch, and he was a machinist who worked at his trade for probably 40-some years.
So what happened after Chanute, Kansas?
After Chanute, Kansas, this Ash Grove Cement Company built a plant in Louisville, Nebraska, and they transferred certain people from Chanute to start up and operate that plant in Louisville, Nebraska. So when I was 11, we moved from Chanute, Kansas to Louisville, Nebraska.
And then you spent your high school years in
Yes,
Louisville.
I started out, I think I was in about the 6th grade, and I went from the 6th grade through high school in Louisville, Nebraska. Louisville, Nebraska was a booming town of about 1,000 people, and it's still a booming town of about 1,000 people.
The cement company's still there.
Yeah, the cement company is still there. They have automated, and they run that cement plant with not too many people. They were one of the first really in the business to automate, and they run that cement plant very efficiently.
So you grew up in Louisville.
In Louisville.
And then you went to the college at...
Well, I graduated from high school in 1934, and then I went to the University of Nebraska from 1934 until 1939. Took me 4.5 years to get a degree in chemical engineering, and jobs were in short supply, and so I went another semester. So I got out of college in June of 1939.
Nothing wrong with 4.5 years to get through college.
No, now some people go 4.5. Brian, if you fall off of there, you'll get hurt.
I'll take care of Brian.
You'll take care of Brian?
Yeah.
Well,
stay off of those.
Anyway,
Go play football. Play football.
it took me about until September to find gainful employment, and I use the word gainful rather loosely. I worked 1.5 years for the Omaha Grain Exchange. We ran routine analysis on wheat, flour, grain, and that sort of thing, and made some baking tests. After 1.5 years, I quit the Omaha Grain Exchange and went to work for the Kelly Erickson Company. Kelly Erickson, A. Horace Erickson, was a flour broker who supplied Safeway with all their flour and many other cookie and cracker bakers with flour. I worked there 1.5 years and became disenchanted with it. And by that time, Pearl Harbor had happened, and we were in war with Germany and Japan. So I came to Kansas City and went to work for Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney was and still is a major builder of airplane engines. And I worked at Pratt & Whitney starting in October of 1943 until I guess it was May of 1945 in
Kansas City, huh?
In Kansas City. Gladys doesn't necessarily like this, but I became Kansas City in October of 1943, became lonesome, and then I married my wife, Gladys, in January of 1944. I worked as I said, until May of 1945. And the war was over, and of course Pratt & Whitney closed down, and I had my first of 4 hernia surgeries. I dictated a letter to Gladys to the Corn Products Company, at that time Corn Products Refining Company, and obtained employment with Corn Products. Corn Products was then, and it probably still is, the biggest wet corn miller in the United States. We made corn syrup, corn sugar, K-Rose syrup, cattle feed. We also squeezed the oil out of the germ and shipped the crude oil to Chicago, where it was refined and made into Missoula.
You mentioned Gladys, your wife, that you got married at that time. Where did you meet Gladys?
I met Gladys in Omaha. She was either about to finish her nurse's training, or she had finished it. She graduated from the Nebraska Methodist Hospital in Omaha, and I think probably she had barely graduated from nurse's training and was working for she was the assistant chief in surgery at the Nebraska Methodist Hospital in Omaha. And after, I don't know how long of that, she went to work for the Glenelg Martin Company, who made medium bombers in Omaha. She was an industrial nurse in Omaha at the bomber plant. Then after we were married and she moved to Kansas City, she obtained employment with the Pratt & Whitney Company, and she was an industrial nurse at Pratt & Whitney for, a year and a half or so.
Was this while you worked there?
Yes, while we both worked there. We both worked there. And we worked considerable 3:30 to 12, so we could be on the same shift.
But you were married by now.
Oh, we were married. Yes, we were married in January. We were immediately, when she came to Kansas City on January about the 20th, and we were married on January the 22nd. Yeah, we were married immediately when she came to Kansas City.
Tell us about those early years in the apartment.
Yeah, those early years in the apartment. I'll tell you, the early years in an apartment. The first apartment we had was in the upstairs of a home, and we had I don't even know what you call them. It wasn't a hide-a-bed or anything. It was one of these beds that folded and made a divan that folded into a bed. It was big enough for 2 at that time. We became disenchanted with it shortly, and it wasn't long after that that we obtained an efficiency apartment in an apartment building. This apartment had one large room, a nice kitchen, bathroom of course, and a dressing room from which we rolled the bed. So we rolled the bed into the living room, pulled it down, slept on it, and we rolled it back up, and the living room was big enough to where it was very substantial living quarters, really. Then
Hold your microphone down.
hold the microphone down like that.
So you can see your face. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a thought. I never thought of that. Anyway, after the war was over, and after I had obtained employment with the Corn Products Company, we decided that it was time to start a family. So Gladys, let's see, I don't remember when she became pregnant, of course. Anyway, it was 9 months prior to April the 1st in 1948. April the 1st, 1948, our oldest daughter, Patricia Sue, was born.
Trio.
And with a pregnant wife and living in a one-room efficiency apartment, the war was over, and we needed better living quarters. So we had saved some money from both of us working at Pratt & Whitney, and we negotiated a loan with Gladys's mother, and we purchased our first home, which was a modest 2-bedroom home at 404 East 41st Street in Kansas City North. At that time, it was an unincorporated area in Kansas City. It's now been annexed by Kansas City, Missouri.
Daddy, here.
We lived there, well, let's back up. 3 years after that, our second child, Janet Louise, was born. This was January the 19th in 1951. Then with 2 daughters and a neighborhood that was going downhill, we decided to upgrade our living quarters, and we moved to 5400 North Wayne, which was an addition in Clay County. These were modest 3-bedroom homes.
Which is 2 doors north of
Which is 2 doors north of our present home. Our present home, we figured we couldn't afford because the selling price of it was $1,300 higher than the one we bought. So when this house came on the market, we traded houses and moved 2 doors south. This home I like much better than the other home. It has a fireplace. It has what was known at that time as a country kitchen. It was the forerunner of what is called a family room. It's a 13 by 13, and if you speak loosely, you could call it a family room. It's an enlargement of the kitchen, which serves us very well.
Sorry.
I'm sure whomever you are would be interested in a recital about the good old days. There is much conversation in the present time about the good old days. I want to tell all you people one thing for sure: they're a lot better now. I had a degree in engineering from the University of Nebraska, and I started working at the Omaha Grain Exchange for the sum of $82 a month. Prices were cheap, and I worked hard, and I saved a little money. I think at the end of a year and a half, I had $225. So I put $225 down on a $450 1938 Chevrolet. This was in 1941. Then I changed.
It was a used car, 1930. It was a 3-year-old car.
It was a 3-year-old car. I bought a 3-year-old car in 1941, and I diligently paid it off at the rate of about $25 a month. So however long it took to pay off the $25 a month. So after working for the Omaha Grain Exchange for a year and a half, and the Kelly Erickson Company for a year and a half, my total assets consisted of a car that was, by that time, say about 4.5 years old. I did not have a checking account. I did not have any money in the bank. So, like I say, those were the good old days. But anyway, as I said, I came to Kansas City, and Gladys agreed to marry me. We got married, and my total assets were this 4-year-old car plus what was left over out of my last check. And I tell you, it wasn't very much money. So some of the neighbors, they talk about these young people getting married without anything. We didn't have anything in the first place, and in the second place, I was working in a defense plant, and that job was going to fold as soon as the war was over. So don't worry about these young people that get married without having anything. They're going to get along fine. Only trouble with things now are prices are a little high, and if you're going to go broke, you just go broke a little faster. There was no stigma. There was nothing wrong with being broke in those days. Everybody was broke. Nobody had any money. Lots of people didn't have any jobs. You can talk all you want to about recessions and so forth. That recession was considerably worse than this one in that there was more unemployed. That recession affected the blue-collar worker much more than it did the white-collar worker. At the present time, there are many white-collar workers that are out of work. This is one of the ravages of inflation, is the higher prices get and the more unemployment are, the quicker you go broke. Another thing that's much different today than it was at one time, you have so much more relief. If your maiden aunt, if your aunt or somebody died, they went to live with grandmother or other people. That was where your welfare was. There was no welfare checks from the government. I think we've probably bared about enough of my soul on this good old day thing. I'm not. Gladys thinks that having to work for things makes a better person out of you. I'm not all too sure about this. If you have to work hard for something, that you're a better person. I enjoy ice cream or maybe a drink or something just as much as whether I have to work for it or not. It doesn't make any difference. Shall we take a breath?
So you're enjoying retirement, is what you're
Oh, well, sure, I'm enjoying retirement.